Hello, hello. It's time to make our app functional. So, as I said, we're going to create a separate page that holds our video information and some of the other information from our lessons data collection. And the reason we want to do it that way is because Builder has an action that's called open page into a container. So I'm going to eventually add an action that connects to this list row. So as I demoed in an earlier lesson, once you click a single list row, it'll open that video and its title into this container. So you could use that to do silly things, like you could click it to open just the style guide into this container. But we're going to create this separate page down here that has elements connected to our lessons collection data so that when you click on the row, it opens the appropriate lesson. So let's just do it. First thing is let's create that page. So bring in a new blank page. We'll call it video. Drag it over. Let's, oops. That's okay. We can always fix these later. Not sure why that happened. So keep our habit of adding our body styles. And now, not much to do here. We're going to bring in a container. We'll give it a name. And all we're going to do really is pull in 3 elements and connect them to the data. So we want our title. So we'll use a heading for that. We'll leave it as an H2. We'll give it some display text, which will ultimately be replaced by the title from the data. We'll bring in our description. So I think we'll use a paragraph for that. Give it some text. And then we'll do what we did for the admin page and use a paragraph, which will turn into a div to hold the video and its embed code. So let's just call this embed code again, change it to a div, and do that same video placeholder text. Let's give this some space. I think what I did in the built out version is just put some margin on this one. If I change anything later, I will always mention that in a future lesson. So everything's recorded on what's in the pattern that's going to be available. So that looks pretty good. So let's just hook up the elements to data. So we want the title to connect to our lessons title. The description to connect to our lessons description, and the embed code to go to the embed code. And finally, once again, make sure that the page is listening for the data. So we'll add the data listener to the lessons collection. Now let's make this work. We're going to add an action to this list row that when you click it will open this video page into a container here. So it's going to hide this empty state container and then open that empty, or drop in the video page into that empty container that we created at the bottom there. So there's going to be a series of actions here. Let's do the first one on the course page to hide that empty state on the click. So we'll create a new action, call it hide empty state. And we use the search for it. Yeah, element hide completely class. So what this is doing is applying that utility class of display none to whatever element we tell it to. And so let's tell it to do it to that entire container, which contains that heading and that image. So that's the first. And then we want some action on clicking the list row. So we'll create a new one called, we'll call it what? Open. We'll just call it open lesson. So first thing we want to do is to have it run that action we just created to hide the empty state. So there is an action for that called run action on page. So it executes an action group on a specified page, which is exactly what we want. So we want to specify that page, which is the course page. And then the action from that course page we want to run is the hide empty state. Then we want to add a second action to this, which is opening, let's see, yes, opening the page into the container. So it opens a page from your project into a container on a page. So the page we want to open is the video page. And we want it to open into the course page into that container, that empty container video. Now we just want to connect this action to this entire list row. So on click, open the lesson. So let's go into live view just to make sure we hooked everything up correctly. Okay, on click. Awesome. So we clicked on data collections, and then obviously we got our title, we got our description, and we got our video. So let's just make sure the other one works and that we can go back and forth. All right, we're getting really far here. A couple things I noticed that I want to make look nicer is this is really crowded. So I'm going to add some padding in this container. And then I want to make this obvious that whatever you're clicked on, you can see over here on the left side which one is chosen. So we're going to do another set of actions that changes the color of the active list row. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's do the padding first. Actually, I want to go back to this page, and this is the container we opened that lesson into, and that's where I just want to add some padding. I think I had done something like, we'll just go inline here, get the margin, and just a little bit at the top, and then more on the sides and bottom, and that should look pretty good. So let's check that. Yep, that looks much better. Now let's do the highlighting the row that's selected. So we need a couple more actions. One which will add a style class to the selected row. We'll do a background color, and then another to remove that style class. And then you'll see it'll kind of seem counterintuitive. We're going to do the remove one first because we want to make sure every time one is clicked, the other one's color gets removed. So it goes back to white. We'll see. Let's just do it. So back in Bildr, let's see, what did we do here? Well, first thing is I went back because I want another color and added to our style guide a third shade of blue here that I called tertiary color. And so we want to go back to our list row. Let's add an action And again, we'll be really specific in what we call this. Remove list row tertiary color. And we want this action, which is element remove style class. So it removes the style class from a selected element. So the style class we want to remove is tertiary color, and we want to remove it from the list row. Now we want another one called change list row to tertiary color. Oops. And so here's where we make them kind of interact with each other. The first one we want to do is, again, when we click one, we want to make sure the other one gets that color removed. So we're going to do this run action on page. And we want to make sure it's this page, run the action, remove the color, and then we're going to toggle this all except current page on. And then in this action, now do the opposite. So I want to add a style class. It was right at the top, wasn't it? I'm just totally dependent on the search at this point, which is good. I want to now add tertiary color to the list row. So now should be the final piece is just including this action in the open lesson action. And the way you do that is this notion of nesting. So I'm going to go in to the open lesson action. And because I'm not adding a new action that exists here in Bildr, I'm nesting one I created from this page. I'm going to go nest, change the list row tertiary color. And let's just put weights on these just to be safe. I'm not worried about performance on this. So again, this is going to run the action to hide the empty state, open the video or open the lesson, and now it's going to run that action. It's going to remove the color just to make sure that that previous one is cleared and then add it. Hopefully that went correctly. Let's test it again. Let's just refresh here. All right, let's see if it worked. Removing. Beautiful. So next lesson, we're gonna give this thing a header to actually make it look like a full page and full app. So it'll have that bottom border to tie this down, and then it'll have a couple new icons here that'll have hyperlinks to our home page and to our resources page and just a little heading here. So see you then. Bye. Just kidding. Before we go to the next lesson, I want to fix a mistake I made. You probably noticed that actually didn't look good when you opened the lesson into the container because it was pushing outside the borders. Because what I did wrong was in that container, I did margins instead of padding. So I just went and switched this from margins of 10, 30, 30, 30 to padding of 10, 30, 30, 30. So let's just take a look. Much better. Okay, now we will go on to creating the header.